Here we go. Quick fireside chat with Sid Bala, VP Go to Market, Relational AI, and thankfully, finally, a finance person that I can talk to about all sorts of things financial services. So, Sid, we know that the Snowflake Summit is coming up June 2nd to 5th. I might have notes that I'm looking at over there. I know you're going to be attending. I know you're excited. And I've got 5 questions I'm going to pick from, but only 3. And so the first question, rapid fire, is what is the one thing that you really are excited about talking to people about at the Snowflake Summit? And if you could just transmit it into their head, what is that one insight, that one thing about relational AI and or otherwise that you want to make sure that everybody at the summit understands and takes away from interacting with you up there in San Francisco?
Yeah, I think you're right. I am excited about Snowflake Summit, and I think it's because we are sitting at a really unique time in history where we've got a tremendous built-up stack of enterprise tech debt across enterprises, but at the same time, AI mandates that are forcing enterprise to rethink not only how they do technology, but also how they do business. And I think relational AI is really critically positioned because enterprises haven't yet discovered the power of an enterprise knowledge graph. And I think what we're going to be hearing about at Summit is a lot of AI. I think that's par for the course for every summit I've been to recently. AI dominates the conversation, but I think what's even more critical is how our enterprise is going to respond and derive value from AI. And one of the ways that I see relational unlocking that value is allowing enterprises to take all of the existing data that they've got but then accelerate their journey to make that data available for AI. And the way you do it, the secret sauce for that is really the enterprise knowledge graph. What I love about relational is that you can start building that graph with any use case within your organization and build it out. It's like building a brain. It's like teaching a child when they're a toddler. And you start from one point and you can build out node by node across the graph. And the power of it is your organization gets to query the graph and really understand how your business operates. And you learn very quickly what works and what doesn't work. And so I think the secret ingredient that people haven't discovered, maybe it's the best kept secret, is that the key to accelerating your AI journey for an enterprise and also the key to unlocking the value that's in your data is a semantic layer, and that's where relational AI comes in.
Fantastic answer. And I'm going to double click, even though this question is not necessarily, in the mix, but go further on that because I love that, right? So when you say that the semantic layer and the enriching of the semantic layer with knowledge graph data and seeing things that folks maybe hadn't seen before in their data, could you maybe give us an example of a use case that you would get excited about, again, sharing when you're cruising around San Francisco at the Snowflake Summit, and perhaps it's with someone who's not as technical, right? So somebody who's a little more business side, but knows their way around the technical side of things, but not necessarily an engineer and not necessarily a machine learning expert, et cetera.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways I would answer this. And having recently come from being a buyer of technology, I think when you put your buyer hat on, there's this phenomenon I've been exploring recently. It's called CIOs on acid.
Here we go.
And ACID is an acronym, and it's really the 4 concerns that CIOs had a few years ago before AI got dropped in their laps. The A is application modernization. C is cybersecurity. I is infrastructure modernization. That includes all kinds of cloud transformations. And D is data strategy. And what we've seen is enterprises over the last 5 to 10 years start to take journeys across those 4 vectors, and each one of those is going at a different speed. And typically each one of these has a different czar within the organization. And can you guarantee that they're all talking to each other and marching in the same direction? Well, now we've gone and thrown AI into the organization and said, do AI. And you quickly realize that you do need to be at a certain level of maturity across all of those 4 dimensions. And I think that's challenging. So we're quickly starting to rethink our strategy inside of enterprises. We're trying to figure out where our budgets are allocated across all of those initiatives. And oh, by the way, we've got to make room for AI innovation in the middle of that, right? So I think it's quite a challenge for enterprise CIOs to think through that and plan out execution strategy to actually go after AI. The second thing I'll do in terms of kind of double clicking into what relational offers, which I think is really cool, is under the covers in relational sits a set of reasoners, and each one of those things gives you a very specific kind of AI capability, whether it's knowledge graphs or whether it's machine learning or whether it's graph neural networks and things like that. What happens when you have relational AI in your enterprise and you've built out your knowledge graph is you start to be able to answer many different kinds of questions that you typically couldn't ask of your data. So whereas you might be used to asking historical questions like, what were my sales in the last quarter? What you start to now open up inside the enterprise is the ability to ask questions that might be predictive. So, what's the world going to look like a quarter from now? What kind of strategies should I execute given the data and given the knowledge that I know? Right. So you start to see this really unique intersection of the kinds of questions you might ask Gen AI in a natural language interface, coupled with the power of having access to data that's locked in Snowflake, hopefully as part of your data strategy and unlocking that. So I'm really excited about that. So as I start to go into more detail about what relational brings to the table, it's that overall enterprise strategy, being able to accelerate the AI journey given where we are now, and then also having the power of key AI capabilities beyond Gen AI to power the enterprise.
Nailed it. Last question, even though this is a little bit of you've kind of already touched on this, but I want to hear you share for the audience a bit on this. So what we talked about previously is that there's this idea within enterprises that there's so much enthusiasm around the use of enterprise AI in multiple different directions, yet there is this fear and concern that's been well researched, and there's some great research that came out of Snowflake recently, the radical ROI of Gen AI, where you've got folks that are very excited about the opportunity and they see it clearly, and lots of research about the ROI that's already happening and it's up and to the right. But there's also this fear and concern about if I pick the wrong use case or area of focus, I could potentially put my job at risk. And given your background, and you've been on that other side of the table for sure in the industry, I would love for you to just share a little bit about your thoughts on some of that research and those statistics and how you think that can be overcome, just in general, given your background.
Yeah, that requires some really deep thought. And one of the things I heard recently was that if you are an enterprise starting an AI project and you've given yourself 4 months, 4 months is really, it's not possible to demonstrate your value in 4 months, because in 4 months, capabilities have moved so far ahead that by the time you finish your project, you're behind. And I think that's something to understand. And if there's lessons that I've learned from running innovation labs or doing large-scale enterprise transformations, it's that the key to success is being commercial. So I think we're beyond the stage where we have the luxury to be able to do proofs of concept and lab experiments just to show how cool AI is. I think the way to success is really think about your business and think commercially, and how do you tie commercial outcomes to the use of AI. And if you can use typical concepts like doing the best for your customers, building the best experiences, creating the most value, just standard things that you would do as a business anyway, but tie those back to commercial outcomes, I think that'll help lead the path to the kinds of things that we should be focusing on and where our AI dollars should go.
Fantastic answer. Focus on the things that don't change. Sid, appreciate the time. Everybody's looking forward to seeing you up in San Francisco at the Snowflake Summit. Thanks again.
Appreciate it, Alec.
We'll see you. Bye.